Welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast. So if you're a Minnesota sports fan, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and click the like button on this video if you're a Vikings fan, because we're only about a month out from training camp now, Liberta, and the roster is, starting to take shape, obviously, after free agent signings and the draft class. And there's a lot of optimism surrounding the Vikings. I think a lot of so-called experts, I've seen some of them say the Vikings are their dark horse team in the NFC. I think there's just a lot more general optimism around the Vikings this year with a new coaching staff, a new front office in place, but largely the same roster, which was obviously a surprise to a lot of fans as well. So, the draft class was pretty solid. We've already gone over all that. Free agency outside of Zadarius Smith, they didn't really make a whole lot of, big moves per se, but they've been linked to a couple, somewhat big names, I guess, as the tail end of free agency is still kind of sitting out there because, these kind of guys probably won't sign until training camp starts. So let's kind of dig into it a little bit. Obviously, the biggest name, Liberta, is Ndamukong Suh. There's reported interest from the Vikings and Suh as well as the Raiders. I think Ndamukong Suh was on NFL Live and basically said the Raiders sound like an interesting spot for him, which, I mean, it's Las Vegas. I guess it makes a ton of sense. But what do you think about the Vikings having interest in a guy like Ndamukong Suh, who's definitely getting towards the tail end of his career, but I mean, he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, and he's he's been a very well decorated defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, this feels like a juicy name to throw out there. I am kind of intrigued by this. I think he would make honestly a valuable rotational piece along our defensive line. I think it is a little bit different switching to the 3-4 this year. I don't think he quite slides into that super nicely, I guess, just because we're or for the longest time, really, he's played as like a 3 technique defensive tackle and a 4-3. But at the same time, if we're playing a lot of nickel, then it doesn't really matter. Then that's more of a 4-3 look anyway that he can rotate in with Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Phillips. So realistically, that'd be a nice 3-man rotation if I'm going to be honest. So
yeah,
I think that would be a lot of fun. But at the same time, too, I don't want to read into this too much, I guess, just because he also – I feel like he could be leveraging the Vikings as basically to get into a bigger contract with the Raiders. So I think he's trying to use some team that I think definitely did show interest. I think that's real, but I think just as something out there that's like, hey, otherwise I'm going to go, like the Raiders got to give him the money he's looking for. Otherwise I'm going to go sign there. But in reality, he wants to sign Las Vegas because if you look at all the places he's played before, I mean, he played in Detroit, but then that was where he got drafted. But then he plays in LA, plays in Miami, plays in Tampa Bay. So it feels like Vegas like is a logical stop compared to Minneapolis. So I think that's the way I kind of go about looking at it too. So I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's certainly on the table. I wouldn't put it as like a high percentage chance of happening, but I think it's certainly worth entertaining. If he does actually want to come here, great. I think I'd bring him in. I know he has a little bit of a polarizing personality, you'd say. So yeah. I think I'd bring him in though, because at this point we have the cap space to do it. So I'd say it's worth it. But I think the pros outweigh the cons here. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, if you would have asked me before the offseason started, I probably would have said no, like I'm not interested. But the way it's all shaken out and how we're basically running it back, thinking that this current group of players can win, I'd say, yeah, why not? If you got the cap space to do it, I mean, you might as well add another depth piece because as we've seen the last couple of years, the depth on this team has really killed us. We've had a lot of injuries, especially defensively, where the depth hasn't been good behind a lot of these starting players. So adding another defensive tackle into the mix could only make us better. And he's a pass rushing defensive tackle, which we don't exactly have at the moment. So definitely an intriguing name. Yeah, he's a polarizing player. He was kind of a dirty player when he was with the Lions for a while. So definitely interesting. But yeah, he's at the tail end of his career, so I wouldn't expect like any insane impact from him. But it's just another guy you have to worry about in addition to Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. So certainly an intriguing name, but there's also potential interest in a Linval Joseph reunion. I know he's not signed by anybody. What would you think about bringing back the big goon?
I give him a shot. I think he had some good years here. Obviously, he's past his prime, so he'd just be a rotational depth player. So in that capacity, I'd be fine with it just because I think he is still a guy who can certainly stop the run. I think that was the biggest thing he did for us in our prime Zimmer defense years. So I would say this is also worth it because I think he'd also come on a very reasonable price tag. And I think it's at least worth a look. But I guess at the same time, I don't know if, like you said, maybe you want more of a Suh that has more pass rushing prowess just to be different and complementary to what we already have with Phillips and Dalvin Thompson are more run stoppers themselves. So
Right.
I don't know, but at the same time, it's kind of a fun one to bring up though, just because it's like it makes you reminiscent the last time our defense was good, I guess. So
True. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of at the point where I don't want to keep bringing back ex Vikings. Like I don't want to
yeah,
bring
fair.
back at this point. Like I don't really want to bring back Anthony Barr. I mean, Zadarius Smith already took his number, so I don't know what's going to happen there if they do bring him back.
Yeah.
Linval, I guess, like he's kind of old, and we don't really have a need for him because we already have Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Phillips, who
True.
are supposed to be run stuffing defensive tackles. So um, I feel like it's a little redundant. I'd rather see a guy like Armand Watts get more of an opportunity, and maybe even
Yeah.
like a Jalen Twyman or something. Like I don't want to keep clogging the way for some of these young guys that could potentially produce. So I don't know. I'm not super big on bringing Linval back, but I could definitely see why they'd have interest for sure. And lastly, there's been no real link between these two, but we got to talk about JC Tretter because he's still somehow a free agent. He was one of the top 10 centers in the league last year, and nobody signed him. There's potential injury concerns there, but are the Vikings really just going to roll into the season with Garrett Bradbury as their starting center with no real competition?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I think there's some internal plan there that we're not quite aware of yet. I'm sure they're looking at Tretter, and for one reason or another, he hasn't signed anywhere. That is kind of really mind blowing a little bit. Like when you lay it out like that, he was a top 10 center in the league last year. So it's like, how
Mm-hmm.
bad are his, or how bad is his injuries, or how bad are his injuries, and what does medicals look like, I guess. And then
Right.
basically, how much is he looking for as far as money goes? Like maybe the Vikings are just trying to lowball him. And then I would also say they might have intentions for Chris Reed to potentially play center. I think that's also on the table here, that they might view it as just a competition between Reed and Bradbury, and that's it. Or they really actually feel that could go Bradbury, which would kind of scare me. So I think everything's still on the table. I think the situation's still fluid until we get into training camp for a couple of weeks. But for now, it feels like that's still a name we should definitely keep on the table.
I'm just worried that Kevin O'Connell thinks he can fix everything. I think he thinks he can fix
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins. I think he thinks he can fix Garrett Bradbury. Kirk Cousins, maybe. I mean, just by scheming up some better plays for him, getting guys open more. But Garrett Bradbury, man, I mean, that guy he cannot pass block. I mean, he's just any sort of big defensive tackle is going to push him straight back. And I don't know how you can fix that. I mean, there's going to be times where Kirk's going to have to drop back and pass. Can't do play action every single play. So that's going to be concerning for sure. But like you said, I'm sure they have some sort of internal plan, whether it's Chris Reed, um, maybe they're quietly working Wyatt Davis into the mix, although basically everyone thinks he's going to get cut at this point. So that's disappointing. But any other final thoughts from you on any potential additions the Vikings could make here as we start heading towards training camp?
Here's one I do not want to happen. I heard this brought up last week when I think he went on KFan, or maybe somebody.
Oh,
I'm not sure if it was he went on KFan or somebody
yep.
on KFan talked to him, and that's Rudy expressing interest in come back to the Vikings. I don't want any part of that.
Yep.
Thanks for your time here, but I don't need Rudy back in this mix here.
Yeah, no, that was one I forgot to mention when I said I don't want to bring former Vikings back. Him, Everson
Yes.
Griffin, like I don't want to deal with that anymore. Like the past is the past. Rudy, yes, thank you for all you did here, but Irv Smith is the number one tight end on this team. Nothing's changing that. And I know we don't exactly have great tight end depth outside of Irv Smith, but like,
Dude, Johnny Munt.
yeah, Johnny Munt.
We
I
still
can't
have
even.
Zach Davidson in the mix, right?
Zach Davidson, Ben Ellefson, I think I saw is like technically the second tight end right now, the guy from North Dakota State. So
Really?
I'm an NDSU guy, so I don't have much of an issue with that. I know he caught a few passes last year, but I say just give some of these young guys a shot because tight end I don't think is going to be heavily emphasized in this offense.
Yeah.
I think Irv Smith will be used more as a wide receiver, and so I'm not terribly worried about the tight end depth unless Irv Smith gets hurt. That again, which that would be concerning, but. I'm against bringing Rudy back as well, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that tight end's a super important thing here in O'Connell's offense, or at least we don't know that for sure because we haven't seen him call any plays. But at the same time, the way the Rams have been operating the last couple of years, it doesn't appear that way. So Irv Smith might just be an added luxury where it's like, since he's already there, we can kind of work him in, but like we don't have to go out of our way to make the tight end position like really important in the passing game. Like, sure, might roll out these guys to run block, and in that case, you can use anybody, like you said, like an Ellison or like a Johnny Munt. So I'm not really keen on bringing Rudy back into this mix.
Yeah, definitely not. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here coming into training camp and the sort of the battles they have. I know wide receiver, probably outside the top 3 is going to be intriguing, kind of how that falls.
Yes.
Right guard and, center potentially could be interesting. And then there's some defensive spots as well up for grabs. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but definitely probably, it's kind of the dead time of the off season until the players get back into town here. So, yeah, we'll just keep an eye on if they maybe add in Ndamukong Suh and bring another interesting name into the mix. So that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about the Vikings potentially adding a guy like Ndamukong Suh? What are your thoughts on J.C. Tretter? Do you think Garrett Bradbury needs some competition rather than just giving him the starting center job? And any other thoughts you might have on this Vikings squad before training camp starts here. So until next time, thanks for watching.